Hello and welcome to Scientology Money Project on YouTube. Let me check my settings here. And good day to do a show. So let me turn up my volume on my headphones. Welcome. Today we're going to have a really interesting show. But let's get into our comments. Hi Denise. Glad to see you here. Hi Power Lies. I put raw meat on an e-meter and did a time-lapse video. Lots of needle action and shrinkage. Wow. Please put the link where you audited raw meat. And you know what? Hubbard called WOGs raw meat. He said we need to bring raw meat into the orgs. And this is funny. Hi, Mona. I'm glad you could catch sit in for a few. The chicks will scream for e-meter. Yeah. Today, I thought it would be good to hello, one left 51,000. It's gonna be, Joe, it's gonna be a fun topic. Um, so what I wanted to do, uh, I think the e-meter, I'm doing some research. I believe Scientology's current e-meter, the quantum, my CIA hat. Let me get my CIA hat. We're the cult investigative agency. We're the other CIA. We're your friends at the CIA. And anyway, um, so I thought it'd be fun to take apart a meter, but also talk about what's going on. And so this is contextual. It's going to be really interesting, and we're going to use the Quantum Mark 7 because the new Mark 8s you have to have a license, and you can only buy them with a permit. And so yeah, people want to know a lot about e-meters and I've often wondered what would happen, Jill Anderson asks, if you placed an e-meter upon a Ouija board. Wow, it might make a good photo op. That would, yeah, we could hook up an e-meter to a Ouija board and audit the Ouija board. And because the Ouija board is in contact with discarnate entities, this is why I like my audience. This is something I would actually do. I bet I could get a Ouija board to read. So I might do that. I might do that one time. That's actually a very creative idea. And find out what, all the entities in the knee meter. Maybe they're just BTs on the Ouija board, since Hubbard's reductionistic and everything is body Thetans. It's body Thetans all the way down. Howard Taylor Esquire. Hello from the Wild West of Great Britain, England, near the deepest depths of Dartmoor. Ooh, well, welcome. I'm glad to have you here from near the deepest depths. I got vaccinated for body Thetans. You can't, there does, well, actually, maybe you can. What's the vaccination? How much does it cost? Maybe that can replace Scientology. Okay, so um, we're going to jump into it. Basically, some e-meter basics first. When you get an e-meter, and let me get it here. Okay, so when you when you get an e-meter, okay, it's going to come in a briefcase. It's going to be a Halliburton aluminum briefcase, and you can, because when you're doing solo knots, e-meters are used in regular auditing, but when you get on solo, when it's just you solo by yourself auditing your body Thetans, you're going to want a solid case, because you have to get on the can several times a day for anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes or longer, an hour sometimes, and you're going to telepathically use the meter to communicate to your BTs. But there's a first practical problem. But anyway, you're going to want a solid case, because you have to do your solo sessions. And the e-meter case is lined, it's going to have the big logo, the big Scientology logo. Wow, look at that. The CIA and Scientology all in one place. Where else can you get this bonus? Now, this is a Photoshop. This is a screenshot you can get to prove you can put Scientology and the CIA in one room. That's like an added bonus of watching the show. And this is the stand. You're going to set up. It has wings on it, and you're going to put. So this is what you're going to put the meter on. So it'll hold the e-meter up. And then if you're getting audited, the PC can't see the auditor. You can't watch the needle. So it's going to have a stand, plastics, and this is actually patented. The meter is about $5,000, and Hubbard designated that you need two in case one breaks. You need a spare because you don't want to be without it's like a lifeboat. If you're in the middle of like auditing a virulent BT cluster, uh, you're not going to want to have that meter break down. I mean, if it does, you better have a backup. Okay, Nellie? And you also are going to get a set of cans. These are sets of nested cans, one for each hand, or electrodes, and they come in different sizes. And so, because not everyone has the same size hands, so you get a selection of cans. And Hubbard's original e-meter, he just used Campbell's tomato soup cans. He said those worked best. That's actually in writing in the early Scientology literature where he recommends the Campbell's soup cans. And then you would hook it using alligator clips. And I'm not going to, you know what an early e-meter looks like. Actually, I might get it. Yeah. Okay, so I've shown this before. This is like Hubbard's original. After he got rid of the Matheson e-meter, he built this nice meter with a wooden case. And this is, people argue whether it's the American blue or the British Mark V, the purists argue. And I think this is an American blue. And so that's the original meter. Well, after Volney Matheson's 120 volt meter, which put like 500 milliamps into the body. So this was Hubbard's 58. After Volney disappeared from the scene in Scientology around 55, 56, somewhere in there. Hubbard had John Dearborn and one of his other guys, and it has a little resistor on that card on the top, and you could take it off and you would set it up, and that would be the stand you'd support on. You'll see William Burroughs in a picture using one of these. If you Google William Burroughs Scientology, William Burroughs, author of Naked Lunch and other works, the great William Burroughs, used one of these. So this was used for many years, and then there were so many problems with that one because it was just crap. The components were really crap. It was so Hubbard took manufacturing in house and he patented his own. You'll also get a card. The Hubbard Electrometer Manufacturing Department, Golden Era Productions, even though it went out to Gold Base in San Jacinto, this was an early one where I think you still have to register it at 6331. And the reason being is they didn't want you to know where Gold Base was, where the manufacturing facility was in. When you went over the rainbow to Gold Base, yeah, as I know, I noted that Campbell Soup in Camden, New Jersey is where the first Church of Scientology was. A plus. Yes, it was. And that's one of those fun things about history. Maybe it's just me, but your video doesn't seem as crisp as it usually does. Let me just check my settings. I'm high def, and let me go see and check on the settings. I tuned a setting. I put a filter on. Yeah, there's a book on Burroughs and Scientology called William Burroughs and the Weird Cult. Oh, yeah, that is the meter on the cover. Okay, so I don't know what the video is. If it's not as sharp, I just adjust. I don't have like a gain adjust. I'm seeing some video issues. I wonder what it is. Let me go see. I am. That's as good as we're going to get. Is it better? Okay, well, I don't have a gain. So if it's fuzzy, it's the internet feed. And okay, if it's better, then I did a little tweak on StreamYard. So I hope that's better. Okay, thank you. I'm glad I'm better. You know what it was? It's that filter switch you have to use. Either that or you were all having a mass migraine. That could be it. Okay, good. Thanks. I'm glad to get the feedback from my studio audience. Okay, so they didn't want you to know where that these were being built out, so you had to mail in your registration card and you had to put your serial number and the Hubbard Professional Mark Super 7 quantum meter warranty, and you had to write your serial number and then mail it in. Yeah, Howard, there. Exactly. I'm blaming it on the e-meter. And look at this. So, Mark 8 Super quantum registration, your warranty registration card, and what is the warrant? Would you warranty an e-meter? Like it's made for auditing engrams and body thetans. Um, blah blah. It's just a lot of legalese, and where are my glasses? I don't know where my glasses are. I'm like on a workbench here. My desk is turned into a workbench. I'm sure it says it's not our fault. If it does say, please note the e-meter is not for use in carnivals, religious revivals, and may not be used in conjunction with other occult devices. Please note that the e-meter is not dishwasher safe. Oh, so if you were thinking of putting your e-meter in the dishwasher to clean off the BTs, it's not dishwasher safe. No, I'm making this all up, but that's part of the fun of having a YouTube channel. Okay, so um, first, the first datum. Let's start. The first datum you should know is we're going to be auditing the Thetan with the e-meter I invented. Ron, you didn't invent the meter. I most certainly did. No, he didn't invent it. Carl Jung was using one in 1906, and it goes back to Faraday and people into the 1880s. So we're trying to contact about the extended warranty on your meter. That would be a that's a missed income, like the extended warranty. Well, this should like you can buy your meters for this lifetime, and we covered that yesterday. This lifetime, which is basically worthless because you have a lot. So we'll sell you an extended service warranty because if you blow a lot of charge in BTs, you're gonna want that extended warranty. Okay, so I want to give you. I have which book is it? Oh, okay. The Creation of Human Ability. I'm going to share that screen, and here I'm going to set up the problem. Okay, so the e-meter is a physical object, and we can see it, feel it, and the cans, by the way, you have. Oh gosh, this is such old tech. The banana plug and the cans plug in, so you have a hole at the top of the can, the electrode, and you plug it into each side. So let's do this. And this is just for like, so if you've never been around, you can order one cheap on eBay just to have. So these are the cans plugged in, and then the other end of it will plug into the e-meter. So you plug that into the meter. Now, the weakness of the meter from an engineering perspective is the hand can interface. It's the hand can interface. Because the acrine, ECCRINE, the acrine sweat glands in your hands are what? The e-meter is going to read galvanic skin resistance, or what's called electrodermal response nowadays. Getting a little ahead of myself. Um, and so what they do is they give you a box of wipes called e-meter electro cleaning cloths. And these are just like candy wipes, but they're made, I guess they're made to get the BT residue off. So you're going to get these packets of wipes. And no, you don't use them for no, Brandana, they're not made for personal hygiene. But in an emergency, you could. E-meter cleaning cloths. So you're going to clean the cans with this, because if you're on this for hours, they get sticky and gummy. So you hold them and you plug it in, but you also have to use hand cream. And Scientology used to sell standard hand cream. That was the only approved hand cream, and you had to make sure. And then you give the can a squeeze, and it reads. Yeah. So, okay, so that's how it works. That's the basic setup. You get it in a sturdy Halliburton aluminum case. You select which can size. If you have tiny little hands like David Miscavige, tiny little fists of fury, you're gonna get the smallest cans. But I think he probably needs even smaller cans, like tiny little ones. You can also Hubbard in the early days, and you don't know it, but you have the same kind of cream sweat glands in your feet. So Hubbard, in his early writings, said that if someone was like flailing about, you could tie them down and tie the soup cans to their feet to get them to read. He did write that for what are called resistive cases. I'd like to know how much they charge for the fancy wipes. Well, you have to buy the $5,000 meter, but you need two. So it's basically built into $10,000. And if they catch you, if RTC, the religious technology, the authorities, the Taliban of Scientology catches you using something other than approved e-meter electro cleaning clothes to clean your cans, you're going to be in deep shit. Davey uses thimbles for his cans. Yeah, he's in a little dresser drawer sleeping for his bed, and then he uses his little thimbles. Actually, Miscavige would say, "How does the scotch go into this? There's a hole at the bottom." Anyway, so okay, I'm going to give you some L. Ron Hubbard stuff from Creation of Human Ability, because I'm going to set up the whole problem, and they didn't think this through. But that's why you have guys like me around. So I want to share a screen, and which screen do I have up? Oh, okay, no, I don't want to share that one right now. So I'm going to remove that. I have to remove one. Hold on a minute. Just bear with me, because I want to share a screen. Okay, we talked about Scientology being a spirit. You're a Thetan or a spirit. And so what does that mean? Thetan is a spirit, and we're going to go to entire screen. Darn, I can't find it. A window. And I want the creation of human ability. The creation of human ability. This is what happens when you're eclectic like me and you're going all over the place. A window. Oh, I had so much stuff. Okay, the creation of human ability is, I may just have to read it. Let me see if I drag it over here, if it'll show better. This is what I hate about StreamYard. I can't be as, okay, there it is. Okay, share. Okay, Hubbard's book, The Creation of Human Ability. If you need to have human ability created because you don't have any. Hubbard begins with the premise that Hubbard begins with the premises that everyone's an idiot. Everyone's a complete stupid idiot, and they don't know anything. And so he has to literally teach you everything: how to clear words, how to read. I mean, everything. So, wet hands on 1/2 inch pipe reduces resistance. Yeah, it's true. There's all kinds of problems. So, but in the creation of human ability, Hubbard said that he starts waxing poetic. Go your ways, behold, I send you forth as lambs among wolves. Yes, lambs among wolves. Hey, try the other way. He's sending wolves among, and so you have to get through all this gobbledygook The Auditor's Code. This is an early book. Let's go to just location. That's what I'm looking for. Okay. Now, a thetan is also called a static. A static. Okay. A static, you can read that as thetan or spirit. A static has no mass, meaning mobility, no wavelength, no time, no location in space. No space. This has the technical name of basic truth. So this is important at the very outset. You have to understand that in Hubbard's metaphysics, a thetan has no mass, wavelength, location in space. That means the thetan is outside the physical universe. So uh, the first nonsensicality of Scientology is you're going to try to use physical WOG electronics, secular electronics that was not invented by any Scientologist. And even back at the beginning of electricity, you had to invent Ohm's law and the mathematical modeling of electricity. So you have a problem with this no in space. So logically, it would follow that a body thetan has no location in space, and yet they're on your body, but they would not be detectable if they did not have a wavelength, location, meaning mobility, no mass. I mean, a photon is a massless particle, but it has energy. But according to Hubbard, so this is a definitional where Scientology really breaks down that if we follow the strict definition that a thetan has no location in space, then body thetans do not occupy space. So we're going to set that impossibility aside. So you couldn't have a detector for something that basically does not exist in the physical universe. And yet it somehow impinges on the physical universe. And Hubbard actually said, that body thetans, it's important. You know the story. Xenu kidnapped bodies, nuked everyone in volcanoes, and then their spirits or thetans, which supposedly have no mass or wavelength, physically attach themselves. So the mechanics of that, they don't work. But yes, adorable anarchy. They have no mass. This is why they can only be detected when one is wearing masculine corduroy. The corduroy, that's what. So they borrow mass from corduroy. You're a good physicist, and Hubbard wanted to be. He said he was a nuclear physicist. He should have said he was a particle physicist. And it will be found, and this is nothing adorable anarchy invented, but I did discover in 1954 when I was quite sweaty there in Phoenix, and I was just sweating like a wet hyena, and my calves, my fat calves, were quite chafed, and I was getting a rash, an odd rash on my fatted calves, and no lotion. And I discovered it was a body thetan issue. So by the wearing of corduroy pants, which I invented, the rash went away. So, good to see you here, Sylvie Bilf. Yes, when the auditor says the words of consecration, the e-meter substantially enters the theta universe. Oh, this is genius. So we can take the Catholic doctrine of transubstantiation, even though Hubbard never said it, but see, Sylvie Bilf, great theology. So I guess you would have the auditor and the e-meter through transubstantiation, making the body thetan. That's not in Scientology's doctrine. It's brilliant, but it's verbal tech and therefore squirrel, but it is brilliant, as is corduroy. So we're going to ignore. I wonder if thetans will be discovered as black matter. so, okay, we're just going to put aside the fundamental problem of a discarnate entity which has no mass, no presence, no wavelength, no location in space in our universe. It doesn't exist anywhere. It's even more disappeared than the Sea Org. But you're going to use this oracular device called the e-meter. So what I did is I have the patent for it. I took it apart before the show to save time, but this is a Quantum Mark 7, and it's done in a metallic plastic blue. It's an easy bake oven, and so that's what it looks like. I'm not And then the back side of it has some electronics we'll get into. There's even calibration. You get the calibration. Can I get it? Calibration resistors into which you plug the banana clips, but I don't want to get too lost down in the weeds. But those are calibration resistors. So we're going to get into the patent. We're going to get into the meter itself. So let's start. So we know that we're going to somehow the physical body that Hubbard denigrates as the meat body is absolutely essential because that's the via. Hubbard used that word via. That's the via by which the e-meter will be able to detect body thetans, which would otherwise be undetectable because they don't exist in space. They have no location. Nevertheless, they're located on the body. So that's a fundamental contradiction in Hubbard's metaphysics. His epistemology, phenomenology are even worse. And this is something the paid cult apologists out at Claremont. It's a horrible place, Claremont. Claremont Seminary. They just have bastardized their name by hooking up with Scientology. I'm ashamed of Claremont. It was once a good place, and then they hooked up with Scientology. And their books need auditing, not them. So I'm going to get to. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, there's actually a patent. Hubbard's had a series of patents, but we're going to look at the Mark 7 patent, and I have to share the screen, stop screen, share screen. So let's just jump to the patent real quick and entire screen. This is the US patent. So those of you, and I'll put it up on my blog. I have the for the Mark 8, but I don't have the Mark 7 up. So this will tell you the real facts. When you read the patent, oh, it went too big. I'm sorry, we had a change of space process. No, we're on this thing. Just okay. So, what does a meter really do? What did the church tell the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office? They call it a system for measuring and indicating changes in the resistance of a living body. Oh, I have to undo that. What a mess. Okay, so it's a system for measuring and indicating changes in the resistance of a living body. So Scientology can't patent. Cannot patent. They can trademark and copyright body thetans and the OT levels, but they can't make a claim. You can make a claim on a patent for anything, but instead of saying that this is a system for detecting body locations which have no location in space, they say it's a system for measuring and indicating changes in the resistance of a living body. That just means what they're reading is the galvanic skin resistance in your body. So your human skin, it was discovered in the 1870s, maybe a little bit earlier. Human skin is conductive, and the resistance in skin changes. It can go up and it can go down. And galvanometers, which they were originally called, have been around maybe 1880 as the first one, 1870. I have it in my book, um, which is coming along really well. So that's what Scientology, the undisclosed hidden engine of Scientology, is that what powers the e-meter is galvanic skin resistance. It's also called electrodermal response nowadays. That's the better name for it. So this is a point I really want to make to you is the hidden engine that powers the e-meter is your own skin resistance. And the patent says changes in resistance of a living body because when you're dead, you're not going to measure anything. So that's the undisclosed hidden engine of the e-meter, and all of Scientology itself is galvanic skin resistance. And if they didn't have this device to read changes in galvanic skin resistance, when Carl Jung audited in 1906, he used an e-meter and he used word listing. He was using trigger words, and as I've said before, instead of 50 hours of conventional Freudian psychoanalysis, the talking cure, he would read lists of words, and some would trigger and read on Carl Jung's galvanometer, which became this psychogalvanometer. And so Jung noted that changes in emotional state, hunger, stress, things would change electrical skin resistance, and that could be detected. So then Carl Jung could say there that word when they said father and the needle moved, they could say let's explore father, and that would narrow down time of psychoanalysis from 50 hours to get to your father was an issue down to just a reading list maybe in under 20 minutes. And so it reduced psychoanalytic time to help Carl Jung and his colleagues narrow in on the psycho. So like father, home, trauma, darkness, blackness, sex triggered. It might mean that the person they were examining, Carl Jung, and who was a psychiatrist, might mean that that person had been essayed by their father in their home. And that was the purpose of it. And that work went on for quite a long time. It was translated into English in 1918. It's available online. Back to the patent. So that's the undisclosed thing. Scientology is using part of the human body itself, and it demeans the human body as a meat body. But without the human body and the galvanic skin resistance device invented by others that goes back over 130 years, probably 150 years, this has been around a long time. And so you break it down. What's amazing to me is that Scientology, as much as it demeans the WOG world, and WOG is non-Scientologists, and we're all brain dead zombies, but yet they use Scientology completely and totally rips off, uses WOG technology. They need the internet. They need semiconductors. They need resistors. I mean, to run their whole operation, they need cameras. They need everything that the WOGs have invented. So while they're trying to destroy and dominate the world, they need our technology to do it. And so this patent was made in data patent January 4, 2000. Lafayette Ronald Hubbard, you can see on item 75 up here in the upper left-hand corner. His name appears on it, although they note that he is deceased, and late of Sussex, United Kingdom. That's incorrect. He was actually deceased late of Creston, California, Bluebird Motorhome. And then they have Norman Starkey on the patent as his legal rep, and the inventors were John McCormick, James Stavropoulos of Redondo, Richard Stennett, who would appear on the later patent, and the assignee of the patent is Church of Spiritual Technology. So that who owns it. Now, so basically, you can read this, and I'm not going to go into it, but you can see Scientology needs WOG science to exist. It needs electricity to exist. A point I've made before, which bears repeating, is that Scientology is the only religion in the world that needs electricity to exist. Christianity, you can have the wine and bread and the Bible, and you can exist. You don't need electricity. Um, so, so it's of interest to me that as much as they're at war with the world, they need our technology. They need our technology, and they can't live without electricity. So instead of taking the wine and the bread, they take in electrons and needle reads, and that's makes them cultic. And they're trying to access some um, realm that's a physical impossibility, as we described. So let's go jump back onto the patent. Um, so this lays it out, and basically there's a clock and a meter on it, and we're going to get into some other software parts of this. And if you read through it, there's the tone arm, the TA. It gets interesting when you get down into it because there's going to be some decisions that the machine makes. And I think that came about after the death of Lisa McPherson. And David Miscavige changed the definition of the floating needle. And we're going to get down into that level of software. But you can basically see this is nothing remarkable as far as circuitry goes. It's a galvanometer, and it's configured for Scientology's use. The outer embodiment simply a design. So we're just going to leave it here at the Mark 7 quantum program flowchart. This is where it gets interesting, but let's go back to the hardware. Okay, now I took it apart before the show. This is what the back of the meter looks like. So you have uh, the battery here, bottom. This is the battery, the black part. I'm doing this backwards, so hold on a minute. There's the battery, and this is like it's a clamshell design. So you've got the printed circuit boards, and you saw those laid out. There's a magnetic coil. You pull it back. There's the actual. When we look at the meter on front, the big white meter, that's the back of the meter, and right there. And then the timer and the counters are here. Those are the slots for them. So there's a bill of materials out there somewhere for it. And even with research, design and research and development, this is not a $5,000 device. This is consumer grade, something, Best Buy would sell. It's not crap, but it's also not scientific instrument. It's far from being a medical device or a scientific instrument of any kind. It's not a spectrophotometer. This is a consumer grade galvanometer. That's all it is. And these are rheostats on the back. There's two rheostats with white. You can see the rheostats there. The white, my pinky's pointing to it. And those go to the dials on front. There you go. So you set these and then you have the on off. So you have all the different settings. We're not going to go into them, but you kind of got to turn it on, test it. So you're going to do a lot of things with it. And this is outside my purview of all the adjustments because I'm not going to go into it now. So it's a printed circuit board. And they need I heard Hubbard claim that you needed, and Church of Scientology claims you need printed circuit boards to detect body thetans, which is pretty mind blowing if you think about it. Like, WTF? Really, dude? You're going to go with that? That's the story you're sticking with, Scientology? That if this is a spiritual universe, it would stand to reason if you were an OT operating Thetan, you would not need a VIA. You would not need a device between you and BTs. You would spiritually sense them. I mean, that just stands to reason. You should have a spiritual ability to do it. Sylvie Bilf asks, or Bob Lazar, and by the way, Bob, sorry if I got heated yesterday. I'd gotten a bunch of crap emails and I got more today. And the church wants to know what I have discovered, and I'm creating a mystery for them. And it's going to get worse on today's show. Who took over as personal representative for the estate since Norman has passed? As I understand it, and I could be wrong, when the Church of Scientology gained tax exemption, one condition when Hubbard died is he made Norman Starkey the executor, and Norman was to hold all of the intellectual property of Scientology until such a time as the church obtained tax exemption. So when they obtained tax exemption, Norman in one day transferred the corpus of Hubbard's work to CST and the advanced levels to RTC, where the big money was. And after that, I think Norman served in a putative figurehead capacity because he obviously was obsequious, drunk. He did get drunk at the wedding of Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes, and that's where Leah asked where Shelley was, and Norman got drunk at that wedding and got real handsy with Brooke Shields, and her husband had to ask David Miscavige, "Sir, could you keep this guy off my wife? He's Mr. Stargate all over my wife." And apparently Norman would get very thirsty and drunk, and he would go on benders, and then he disappeared after that. He embarrassed Tom Cruise and David Miscavige, and that's worse than the unforgivable sin of blasphemy. Blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin in Christianity. Embarrassing Tom Cruise or CLB is the unforgivable sin. So he committed the unpardonable sin. And since Norman passed on to Target 2 to be with Ron, I don't know who took over. I would have to dig into that. I suspect that ASI, Author Services International, they're the literary rep for uh, his fiction work. So that's a good question. If someone knows the answer, it's not me, but I mean, it's potentially good to look at. Uh, they are really behind everyone who charges now. Yes. So, yes, sensitivity and tone arm potentiometers. Yeah, switches. That's so. So this is what Scientology is reducible to. They need galvanic skin resistance and they need a galvanometer. Now, uh, in the they called it around 1920. Some marketing person had the idea to call it a psychogalvanometer, meaning it went into the psyche. It branched off and became a lie detector. So basically, a galvanometer is the basis of a lie detector. It's one of the channels. A lie detector will use blood pressure, voice stress, respiration, and a galvanometer. So that a lie detector has multiple channels, but the early lie detectors, one of them was a galvanometer. So this branched off, and they were using changes in skin conductance to indicate that you were lying or stressed. But that could also be anxiety. It could be simple anxiety. There's what's called a white coat syndrome, and that's where you go to the doctor. If you're like me and healthy as a horse, uh, you go to the doctor like for your checkup. You get nervous, like, oh my gosh, and and your blood pressure can go up. But then by the time you're done, and the doctor says your problems are you're just old and you should lose some weight, do a couple of laps, then your blood pressure goes back. So white coat syndrome goes on during polygraph examinations. And I think polygraphs are complete BS. I think there's a fraud, a fraudulent pseudoscience. And I always have said this over and over. If you're ever asked to take a polygraph, say no. In fact, never talk to the police. And these are Harvard professors. Any legal professional tell you don't talk, and don't take a polygraph because what it is, just like Hubbard's looking for uh, body thetans using printed circuit boards, the police are trying to trap you, and they always use they're just like Scientology. It's like, well, the police will say, well, if you're innocent, why don't you prove it by taking a polygraph? And the answer is no, you, the state, have to prove my guilt. I don't have to do anything. I'm not talking to you. I want a lawyer. So the e-meter is the ultimate FAFO. Um, yeah, go around and find out. Electro crapshoot. It's interesting. And you're getting ahead of me, and I like that. BTs are made by it, not located. Yes, just like you can use a Ouija board to summon you know, Mary Worth or other spirits. Zozo. Oh, Zozo. You should Google Zozo Ouija board. Zozo's a famous one. Yeah. So the power is not the transubstantiation of the e-meter creating BTs, but it's your own subjectivity, your own life experience. And Hubbard simply converts that into an engram or a body thetan. So really, the galvanometer is agnostic. You can force any interpretation on it. As I've said, I could audit someone and ask an atheist, ask if they really believed in God secretly. Um, I didn't want to pull everything off, but you can see that again, the backside of the meter, the backside. This is the backside of it, and that has some more circuitry in it. And again, it's Best Buy consumer grade stuff. It's not cheap Chinese electronics by any means, but it's also not any kind of scientific instrument. So there's the charger, and there's a little port in there. What happened is now this one, I shouldn't. I should. Well, I'll go ahead because I don't give a shit. Um, the Ultra Mark 8, the new meter, that was patented, and for a long time they were putting the Mark 8 inside a Mark 7 shell, and they have been doing that at Flag, and the auditors are saying, "Hey, this one's better than the Quantum Mark 7." And so this is actually a Mark 8 I have, RTC, and this is in the Mark 7 shell. And I know that because I went over the patents and reviewed it. Is that patent really enforceable? You could cite prior art and say no. There's plenty of, and I'm going to show some stuff. Please hit that like button. It has body things. Yes, thank you. Let's go into touch the like button. Thank you. Like and subscribe to this channel. Thank you. You hear only the sound of my voice. You want to subscribe only to my channel and no other channels on YouTube. You hear only my voice. You feel peace and calm by liking and subscribing to my channel. It transports you to a state of nirvana and bliss. Okay, so that was like, see, don't you feel better by liking and subscribing? By liking and subscribing to my channel, you will not only will we like you, but you'll like yourself. That's Scientology logic. So I wanted to go back to the patent. So that's it. It's astounding that. So anyway, the marketing, it was a galvanometer, and then the galvanometer's original use was to measure current. And around the time Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein, there was a use in electricity to bring. The British Navy had an interest in electrical devices to try to revive sailors that had drowned. And Mary Shelley was aware of the conversation. What would electricity do? Could it bring back the dead? So this is something I'm covering in my book. And so then it naturally, the galvanometer that was measuring hardware went into psychological research. It had jumped into the area of the psyche. Can we measure the speed of neurotransmission? Yes, they found out they could. And they found that they could measure psychological states or approximate them, try to characterize them, then use it as a lie detector. So it became galvanometer, psychogalvanometer. And then Volney Matheson called it the electropsychometer, or the e-meter. That's where the word e-meter comes from, is Volney Matheson, who invented the meter in its current form after post World War II, and gave it to Hubbard. Hubbard did not invent the meter. Volney Matheson gave him, as I've said, a plug-and-play system. And it was Technique 100 and Matheson e-meter. So where is Mary Shelley? In the great beyond. For the orgy board, or else you're going to get a demon. Oh yeah, that's true. That's very good. And so I want to go back into the patent. So I took it apart down to this level where you can see, it's a charger. It has a battery, and virtually all these parts are obsolete. And there's another board here I have. This is the board, for the timer. And on front, those are the displays for the meter. One of them fell off. They're like not very well mounted. When I was taking it apart, these old LCD chips fell off. But you can see that they were built on flow solder machine. So they just ordered. I don't know who built it, but you can look at all the welds, and those are not hand welds. Those are flow solder. And how do I know? When I was in college, I worked at the old Altec Lansing factory for a year in Anaheim. I was a member of IBEW, union guy, and I ran the flow solder machine at Altec Lansing in Anaheim, which was right across the street from Disneyland, or down the block. I took a year out of college, so it took 5 years to complete, but I know my flow solder and flux, and I know what the boards look like when they get to flux and flow solder. So anyway, that's what it is. But I want to go back to the patent. Now, just follow along with me here. Now, if you want to spend some time, and I'll post it tonight, look at that. Initialize MCU internal functions and hardware. And this is the software or the firmware, if you will. I mean, what would you call? I would say it's firmware. Is it software or firmware? Uh, Scientology calls it software. They just objected to the right to repair an e-meter. They filed an, they want to be included in. You don't have any right to repair it, but this might be called firmware. It's telling the devices how to work, but there's an actual initiation. And this is what's now look at this decision chart 407 here. And this is going to be, I'll get my yellow stick and just put a dot. 407 here. Oh, wait a minute, it's not working. To the left, if you see 407, I'm sorry, to the right, it says decision is delayed to completed. So the e-meter is actually, you turn it on and it says preparation, enable the digital signal potentiometer, set the number of steps that DP will move down to 128. So this gets interesting because this is where I think there's interpolation going on. I don't think there's true auditing like in old Hubbard's meter where it's direct hand to can to the meter. It looks like a series of interpolation where you're going to, I think after Lisa McPherson's death, my theory is that Miscavige told his engineers to like make this thing work to compensate for the wide diversity of skill sets because there's some auditors who are really poor and there's some that are really good. And Miscavige, I think, put some as the man behind the curtain. Basically, one of them put them some software so it restrict the movement of the e-meter. Because when you read the instruction, and when you go on, basically the e-meter reads machine where you train, this software is embedded in it. So look at that. This is basically you're going to tell the e-meter how to behave, and it's going to restrict the ability to have a straight. So there's firmware or software, which are um, but look at those decisions, like 422 to the right. Decision is high resolution bit flag true? Yes. Predefined process. So this is very much in control, controlling the process, controlling the meter. Predefined process. This is really what's going on. This is why it's not metaphysics. This is just a commercial device called a galvanometer onto which Hubbard has superimposed his system of Dianetics and Scientology. So you could superimpose any system on it. And the fact that they had to take a galvanometer and they're telling it what to do, this tends to bias or skew the device so that it's favorable for Scientology auditing. And that's my main argument here. Yeah, the golden age of cover your ass. No kidding, Adam. Um, uh, some of the earlier meters were assembled by Sea Org. This one looks like it was not built at Golden Era. This is the Mark 8 uh, components, and I can read the device numbers and all that. But look at this. So you're basically having this logic, and you're gonna take the raw energy of galvanic skin resistance, and you're gonna process it through a series of decisions. So you have these go no go. So I get 432 to the left. Decision has the TA level changed, has the tone arm level changed right here. If yes, process, clear the TA level detection, flip flop, connect, start over. So look at that. And then if no, process, ensure the detection FF is enabled. And this is what people don't see. They don't see all of the everything the machine is doing. And there's an algorithm in it. It's sampling, preparation, initialize final compare sequence algorithm for 3 samples. Anyone who's done any engineering, technical writing, testing will know what's going on here. Basically, you're trying to get rid of the error rate in auditors and you're trying to compensate and you're restricting what the machine can really do. You're restricting it to narrow band because if you look at the earlier patents, it was basically tomato cans meter, and the auditor would read it. Here, you're forcing a series of statements in logic, and you're sampling. And then if you read the patent for the Mark 8, it's even more restrictive. So that's one of the secrets. Look at all that sampling that's going on. Why would you need to sample so extensively unless you wanted to restrain and bias the output? Because you can take a signal input and bias it, and you can see these yes, no, yes, no, yes, no steps. And that's a big part of the meter. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Okay, so look at that. Has the TA level changed since the last check? And this is why Golden Age of Tech Phase 1 and Phase 2 were really introduced, was to accommodate the new e-meter and impose serious restraints on it. And I'm not going to go through it because this can get boring, but I just wanted to show you how much is really going on in the software. And this is, again, Miscavige's attempt to regulate it. Because when you see this much stuff, this much instructions, you're dealing with a rigged casino. Nobody has a chance when they go under this, because the machine's only going to seriously restrict the auditor, bias it, uh, bias the decision making process. So basically, I could skew this through, or Scientology, I believe, has skewed this to predetermine an outcome and to basically keep a pre-clear within very strict parameters by not letting the meter do certain things. And because, again, the patent doesn't say we're detecting discarnate physical entities outside that have no existence in the physical universe. It says we're using a bunch of circuits to define and bias the read we're getting from galvanic skin resistance. So Scientology does need the physical body, as they try to say it's a meat body. It's everything. So this is trying to read galvanic skin resistance, bias it in such a way that it fits within a Scientology framework. And that's my conclusion. Now, I'm going to go into some other stuff. So we're going to take that off the show. But whenever I see that much, that patent alone, by taking it apart, and I looked at all the parts on the schematics and everything, Scientology is basically not spiritual at all. The e-meter makes the argument that it's based, Scientology is not spiritual at all. Let me repeat that. They claim to have rediscovered the human spirit. Scientology is all about money, greed, legal contracts, and physical hardware. They're not spiritual. They're not a church. This hardware, no other church needs hardware to, it doesn't need hardware. Scientology is fundamentally messed. Matter, energy, space, time. Scientology is fundamentally a business organization using hardware, contracts, law, and this hardware has been overlooked. And to make fun of the e-meter, that's why I quoted yesterday, Hubbard said, incredulity is Scientology's greatest weapon. This is a very, it's not sophisticated, but it will serve its purposes as a commercial grade mind control device. It will force an interpretation and identity, and it's used for sec checks as a lie detector. So the device becomes somewhat benevolent, maybe at the lower levels where you might do, because Hubbard's early work is all based on Freudian psychotherapy. And he said that the e-meter adds new life to Freud's psychotherapy. And I have I presented that before. But then it becomes a tool of fascism, control, mind control, conditioning, processing, sec checking, interrogation. So Scientology is not spiritual at all. If you were spiritual Scientology, you wouldn't need hardware and lawyers and money and fraud and deceit and deception. So, do we have data from tech terminals who left since the Mark 7 came out? Do they say it as basically bowling like bumpers? No, the inventors, and I tried to reach out to one of them, they've all signed non-disclosure agreements. And I've done some research on the people whose names appear on it, but I have my own perceptions on that. I want to jump onto a slide I did, and let me just make sure. Okay, now we're going to go. Is this what I want? We're going to go on to. Okay, let me see if I can enlarge this. This is not what I wanted. Basically, this is a diagram of the hand, and I wanted to get a pathway, and I wanted to get into something more profound. This is a diagram of the human hand, and basically, what is the e-meter doing when it's running electrical current? Well, basically, there's a pathway through the posterior hypothalamus, and I'm not going to read everything here, but basically, there's a pathway through the hypothalamus, which sits next to the pituitary. And so all that 50 milliamps that's going through your body is taking the pathway. And I've been asked sometimes, does the e-meter, what damage does it do to a person for its long-term use? Because then that question arises, why is there so much, cancer, or seemingly so much cancer among Scientologists? And that's a really good question. So we're going to go on to solo knots. That's where we're going to go into the science here real quick. That's when you're auditing your BTs by yourself. And in their advertising, you see Sea Org members carrying, before you go into solo, you get audited by an auditor. That's a Sea Org auditor. You can see her carrying her e-meter case. There's an early picture of John Travolta in the 90s doing his false purpose rundown. Now, this is the closest, and this is where I think that not only attacking tax exemption, but also asking the Food and Drug Administration to investigate the harmful effects of the e-meter, the potentially harmful effects. They're showing a simple pathway here, the Church of Scientology is, in which the path goes from hand to hand, but it's more sophisticated when we look at the human nervous system. And I'm going to fly by this and post this again. I'm looking for it in better. But I'm talking to some academicians. I think there's room for a lawsuit. If you can see to the left, the eccrine sweat glands in the hand, you see the pathway basically up into the hypothalamus, which sits next to the pituitary. So do hours a day of solo or years being audited by an auditor before, we're trying to get to a state of clear. What does this do to the brain? And so I think this could potentially be an area where Scientology could be challenged, because it's not a benign device. It's actually putting current into the body. And Scientology complains about electroconvulsive therapy while they themselves are putting low-level current over long periods of time into the body. And you can map it. I mean, it's going right into the posterior. It's going through the hypothalamus. You can see this pathway. The next pathway, this one is very interesting. This is in a study. And so electrodermal response is being studied. Interestingly enough, this device, not the e-meter, but a device, a galvanometer, is being used to study autism in children. They're looking for electrodermal response in autistic children. So the galvanometer is a widely used research tool. And I'm going to show you some slides from Cambridge University. But when you look at peripheral neurons and the pathways into the brain, can we put together, organize the funding to file a lawsuit challenging Scientology to show clinical literature that this does not produce harm, because this has never been tested what it's doing. Scientology says it's safe, but is it really? is it really when we get down to the level of neurons in the hypothalamus, we know that the current would move through this region of the brain near the pituitary. So what do the hours or years do? So I'm working with some academics a lot smarter than me, and they got real PhDs, not fake Scientology PhDs. The question is, what happens? Here's a sensory image when you put your hand underwater. This actually traces a pathway. So when you're holding a can in each hand with 50 milliamps going through, what's going on? How does that affect perception? How does it distort perception? Especially when you're in a cultic environment where there's coercion, there's sec checking, there's interrogation. How does that alter perception? How does that affect coercive control? What effect do the electrons going through the brain have? And so I'm going beyond the mere. I described the hardware to show that Scientology is in no way spiritual. It's purely a physical, materialistic, capitalist, predatory system, and it's using this device which may ultimately be harmful. And so, one area I've been looking into is prosthetic hands, and I'm really interested. I'm looking at Elon Musk's Neuralink implant into the brain. But when you look at the anatomy of the human hand, to have a prosthetic hand, let's say a soldier lost his or her hand in combat, or you know, uh, your sister lost her hand in an auto accident. Your nephew lost his hand in a boating accident. Right now, with prosthetic hands, you can see how they're going to have to use neuromorphic chips, sensory neurons, but this is the exquisite anatomy and sophistication of trying to get a prosthetic hand. I'm only interested in it for the actual biological levels of going through the sensory neurons, spinal reflex circuits, uh, up into the basal ganglia and motor cortex. So I need help from people smarter than me to map. We know the pathway from the hands up into the motor cortex, uh, hypothalamus region. What is really going on with the e-meter? Is there a lawsuit there? I think there is a lawsuit to challenge their use of it. I think there's a very good scientific basis you could build. So that's one reason I'm investigating this. Is this could potentially be a dangerous device? Now, the way I link it back to what's going on now, um, should a child ever be put on a Scientology e-meter? No, Scientology cannot scientifically explain what the hell putting electricity in the body is doing, especially to a child. What is this doing to the brain of a child or an adolescent? Putting this current in there. When we look at when you and I'm not going to get down into it, but when you look at the problems of there's mood affect. They have found in working with prosthetic hands and also stroke rehabilitation, where people lose the use of their one hand, both hands. There's mood effect. There's definitely mood effect and it's involved. There's some literature there I'm not going to release right now. So this is why should a child be exposed to low level current for endless hours in sec checks? It could be potentially harmful to children. And that's part of what I'm trying to research. So this e-meter disassembly is to show you, one, it's physical hardware. Two, it's metaphysically nonsensical because you can't detect a body Thetan that exists outside the physical universe and has no location. By definition, having no location means that you're not detectable because you have no location and you don't exist in the physical universe. No location, no mass. And yet, Scientology is running current through the bodies of not only adults, but children on a long term basis, and they're using it in a coercive manner for sec checks. I think there could be a lawsuit. That's where I'm really going with this. Um, and I wanted to show you a couple things that are of interest to me. And Um, oh, I can't show that. I'm gonna show you this. This is just some academic stuff, real quick, by way of ending the show. And I want to share a couple things that I've been looking at. And okay, when you're looking at an e-meter, and you're going to be looking at, like I said, you're going to be looking at what is it doing in the brain. Scientology can't say, doesn't know, won't fund any money. They just say it's this, where Scientology really got away with murder was not there. Just, I'm using it as a figure of speech, but you know, their tax exemption. But where the FDA let them really get away with, and this maybe Europe's a better place to press this case, when they allowed Scientology to say that the e-meter does nothing and it's just a pastoral counseling device, our government, the U.S. government failed us in America. The governments in Europe failed by saying this could potentially be very, very dangerous to put low-level current into the human body over time. It's not a benign pastoral counseling device to be used only by Scientology ministers. It's actually an electrical device, and they do use these in medicine in electrodermal research. And I wanted to share something, and I just have to get the screen to give you the exact language. This would be the somatosensory pathways. So just let me um, remove that and share this, and then we'll wind it up. I found this to be so fascinating. No, it's not that one. Well, if I can't get it, oh, here it is. When you get into this level of research, people are using electrodermal. It's called electroneural physiology, neural physiology, uh, but this is structural biochemistry, cell signaling pathways, nervous system. Um, when you can use cells signal each other. When I was working in phototherapy, we could affect wrinkle reduction. Let me just share this. When I was working in phototherapy as part of my lighting portfolio, a wrinkle is a collapse in the collagen, and so we would use a certain wavelength of photons to photoselectively signal the fibroblasts and tell them they were wounded. We would use light to induce a wound response, and the fibroblasts would recollagenate, and the wrinkle would go away. So light works for wrinkle reduction. So what is the e-meter doing in terms of like cell signaling? What's it telling? What's happening at the level of the hypothalamus, in the nerve ganglion in general? What's it doing? What adverse effects may it have? Should it be outlawed like cigarettes? Potentially, there's a case to outlaw the e-meter, and that has to be funded. I can help get the researcher. Um, the low voltage is causing enhanced glycolysis. It's used in the beef industry to halt rigor mortis and improve color. Well, if you could send me that link, please do. Um, Dianetic circa 1957 as tagged exempt by 2024. I'm not sure, Norman, if I understand your question. Scientology lost its initial tax exemption in 1957 and then regained it in 92. Dianetics was a nonprofit. It was never tax exempt. Church of Scientology, founded in 1954, gained its tax exemption, then lost it lost it in 1967 rather. Gained it in 57, lost it in 67. So there's a lot of academic research, and when I showed you that thing, I'm going to show you one more thing that is scientific in nature, but you'll follow my drift. I just want to show you what the level of complexity. Um, Okay, I'm just going to share this final screen, then we'll wind up. So I appreciate you listening. Okay, now on these pathways to the brain, when you get up into where electrodermal research is going on, but also things like prosthetic hands that you will allow the brain to feel, to have a feel things, to feel pressure, heat, water through sensors, neural implants, and things. That to me is completely interesting. And on this particular slide, let me get here. If you look at how much neural structure there is from the hand and what's really going on with neurons and ganglia, medulla, this raises valid concerns, and we need some PhDs who are willing to help. Not only do we need lawyers, but we need this, and especially what does it do to children? Should children be exposed to it? So, as an adjunct to what the second gens are doing, children can't consent. Well, this might be the basis or the nexus by which to show this has potential damage to children. And it would be easier to get a team of lawyers and some neurophysiologists, some other experts to show what goes on with that current, because this is where it begins, the peripheral neurons and uh, thalamic neurons going up into the actual regions of the brain. So we can show how those electrons transit the brain. What effect would they have on mood, suggestion, especially in a cultic environment of coercion? So children can't consent to contracts, so their parents do it for them, which should be a legal battle. Uh, but I think a stronger way to emphasize that to second gens is to just understand the e-meter is potentially dangerous because of current going through the brain of a child, let alone an adult. So that's kind of why I wanted to make 2 points. Scientology is utterly materialistic. If you think it's spiritual, just this is the hardware you need. And what you're reading is galvanic skin resistance of your own skin. You're the engine of the e-meter. You're the engine of it. Whatever your subjectivity, however you modify that through your belief system, you can believe whatever you want. You can practice what you want. But you have to, when you start looking at the actual hardware and then the biology of the body, is it dangerous? It could be, yeah, and I think it is. I personally think it is, and I'm not going to release this. I have a study that was done by someone. I'm not going to release it until the right time and place. So it's attracted the attention of certain academics. So that's it. A particular type of thyroid relates to growth on the ovary. Yeah, it's interesting. The There's been a suggestion. This is just anecdotal, and I'd like to get information that if women miss their periods more than 3 months in a row, that indicates a pituitary problem. Now, could the e-meter over time induce that, missed periods? That would actually be something. The church would not cooperate, of course, but that's worth it. So I think in ending that, a lawsuit could be made, or the FDA could order the Church of Scientology to produce a study showing that current flow, especially in children, is safe. The burden would be on them because they want to employ it and they have the money to do so. Church of Scientology has never funded a study on what the e-meter is doing. Instead, they're buying real estate instead of saying, hey, what the hell is this thing doing? Do we understand it? Because there's a lot of protocols around electrodermal research on the body and in these new areas of study, which I want to expose. So that's it in a nutshell. Now you've seen an e-meter. You see the software controlling the decisions, trying to force electrodermal response from your own body into a Scientology format through a series of go, no-go decisions. That is biasing the auditor, So again, the auditor, the machine's agnostic, but it is doing something. It is doing something to the body. We just don't know. So with that, that's my take on the e-meter. It is far more complex, potentially dangerous. Scientology will never fund a study. Therefore, a lawsuit may be needed, or going to the FDA, develop some evidence by some PhDs. So, well, thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. Um, I'm sorry. That was anyway. This is this is an area of investigation because a head-on assault against tax exemption is you're going to have to come at it different ways because as it is now, you can't just say, "Look, they're a malicious cult and they should have their tax exemption taken away." You have to have reasons why. And certainly contracts of adhesion, violations of public policy, those are all building. But the FDA route, which Scientology has been in trouble with the FDA many times, um, with a lawsuit, is what I'm suggesting. So if you want to help me in this project or you want to take it over, you have a PhD, we'll be glad to put an army of people behind you, meaning the community. And I would like to have a doc, postdoc, someone who has, we can put together with legal people to try to get tax exemption that way, or at least to get children not be allowed on the e-meter. It's a place to start. So with that, I appreciate you as always for listening, and uh, I really do, and I look forward to seeing you next time. So we're gonna go out on that on some nice music. There's always an image, and I'll use a different one today. I have my image library. We'll leave you with Old Hollywood. So thanks for watching.